Hi, I'm Peter Buckle, and this is Design Office Hours, a podcast about design, designers, and careers in design. I talk about creating, leading, and navigating creative work at this place we call work, or office, or studio. Whether you're a student, just starting out, or an established designer, welcome to the pod. This show is also about your input, so send in your topics and questions, how to get in touch with me, designofficehours@peterbuckle.com, emails go there, and follow me on Instagram at designofficehours. Last but not least, head over to my website, peterbuckle.com/designofficehours to sign up for my mailing list and to get notified about new episodes and other stuff. All right, let's get into it. What is on the menu today? Question. We have a question. Ooh, it's one of my favorite topics. AI. Now this is going to be good. Would you be able to identify AI versus non-AI content? Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's one of my favorite topics, the whole AI thing. I guess the question is, why should we use AI to disguise skills we don't have? I have to think about this question. I think this is precisely what AI is good for, enhancing your skill sets in a dramatic way. And it's interesting when you observe people who are using the AI or designers having used it, right? Some say it in a more sort of, excuse me, I'm sorry, by the way, I just use AI here, hush hush. And the other side is like, no, I used AI here. It's awesome. Look at it. So it's interesting to observe that. I think the latter one speaks more to me. The other one says something about maybe psychology and somebody's self-esteem. But I think I'm usually interested in where people use AI and how they do it and where they apply it to their workflow. I think it tells you something about, of course, how a person is engaging with this new technology. And there is no guidebook right now how to do this or big manual, right? So it's people figuring out how to use this and how to also establish this in their own set of values. I think a lot of people feel threatened by it because they feel their values threatened, and we successfully loaded all our self-esteem and value perception on what we call work or job, right? So of course, if that thing is threatened or somewhat under fire, well, we fall into a depression, it seems. Oh my God, my job's going to be taken away. Who am I? Who will I be? I would say, well, now you can be anything, everyone. So anyway, that's just my thinking. So how would you recognize it? Or I don't think you have to recognize it. I want to know where you used it. I would be disappointed at some point if you didn't use it. The technology is there. Why would you not use AI? I think it's hypocritical that everybody uses AI where they can to figure out where does it fly and where does it die. And also figure out what you're good at compared to the machine. So I'm usually looking forward to portfolios that have a thoughtful way of integrating it and getting this play right between human on one side and AI system on the other side. And I'm interested in the equation and the outcome. What did you do here? Where did it enhance your process? Where maybe did it completely replace you? I had people that were very well articulated of how AI worked for them and instead then also worked, well, instead of them. And I think those were usually quite interesting conversations. Now let's get into a little bit more AI beyond this, because I think the topic is close to my heart because it's all about education, and I will get there. So, for example, our friend ChatGPT, I think, use it for creative writing. It's exactly that. It enhances your skills. Not everyone is good at that, but now a lot of folks can get the benefits of that. Also, in general, for writing or analyzing things, summarizing, synthesizing, getting to design principles, etc., etc. Use it. Do it. I think that's what these systems are good for. Enhancing the individual and teams, obviously. Will the quality be as good? I don't know. In the example of creative writing, you are doing it yourself. It's a process that is meant to make you think and work your mind. That part is lesser there when you're enjoying just the outcome, right? So there we have to differentiate a little bit of like, yeah, the thing can do it, but the process of me doing it is actually the point. Now, again, there's then to what extent are you going to use a system like this as a support vehicle or a sidecar? Maybe that's a better word. That is up to the case. It's up to you. That's up to the situation, etc., etc. I think sketching is the same way. You are sitting down, sketching something is a way to get you into a certain way of thinking. A slower one, a more precise one, maybe a more foggy one, depends what type of sketcher you are, a deeper one, all of the above. Again, to what extent you're applying your sidecar, your AI sidecar here, that is up to you, up to the project. I think in general, if someone would be using an AI generator to sketch, there's nothing wrong with it either. Depends what's the application. in the long run, will AI generated output be as good as human output? I think the answer lies in nuances. Now, I know nuances are often cut out and they don't travel well on LinkedIn, and I think that's a problem. But I think first, I always start to differentiate between organized creativity and real novel creativity. And I think we're often confusing creativity with novelty. I think that's not as simple. Now let's talk about organized creativity. I think organized creativity is what we see on most design teams, calling it ideation by putting existing ideas together in new contexts and frameworks, and that's fine. I think that's how we generally work. And in fact, you can create a lot of value with this. I work like this. We all have. An algorithm can also combine existing ideas, connecting dots, and so on. And I believe much better in the future where things are connected, because the system will always have more access to information than we have, can make sense of it faster, quicker, maybe in more depth, etc., etc. Will it be the most novel ideas? Yes, no, maybe. I think the level of novelty here should not be confused with potential for success of an idea or further its execution. What level of novelty is necessary is simply determined by the context. Remember, good enough can be very well perfect. Second, real creativity. When we want to talk about real creativity and true novelty, we need to have a rather spiritual conversation. And in that, humans are superior. A machine cannot close its eyes. Wait, they don't have eyes. Sensor plates. I don't know. Sensor arrays. I don't know. Either way, a human that meditates, closes the eyes, receives something very different that is not about connecting dots. That is listening to something greater, right? Sitting down, meditating, turning that volume knob from number 11 that life is constantly played on because of sensorial overload and whatnot, and turning it down to maybe a 1. So one can start listening into the great consciousness, the stream that's out there, the universe, that system that surrounds us. Now, with that in mind, in the world of work, where companies are incentivized for efficiency gains, saving resources, doing more with less, and ultimately making more money, yes, I believe AI connected systems will sooner or later outperform human output in the near and far and beyond. First, there will be less human input, and then they require no human input, or only an absolute minimum. And I think the whole input notion is so important because it is, to me, astounding what one can do with just a chat interface. The ability to type on a keyboard, either fluent 10 fingers or, 2-finger, whatever one's called, the system, and the ability to speak or type the language. One can get surprisingly a lot of stuff done with that type of an interface. There's no icons to learn. There's no other knowledge like masking and layers and curves and I don't know, whatever we have to learn to operate Adobe or CAD, all of that stuff. That learning curve is completely gone. It's not necessary. So to me, that is striking because this interface lowers the threshold so dramatically that my mom can now generate an image. How much control she has over that image, she will learn, she will figure it out, the tool will get better, it learns, whatever. But the lowering of that input, of that learning curve, of that threshold, will also enable to have a lot of non-designers, people with no design training whatsoever, to get excellent work done, excellent design output, whatever context they need it for, right? And I think that is something I find very interesting. Now, none of the above mentions quality as the ultimate decider. Quality is only needed as much as it satisfies the mentioned parameter. It needs to be good enough to be better than the competition. It needs to be good enough to be better than the previous product, maybe. It needs to be good enough to sustain X amount of time, attract and retain X amount of users, buyers, money, whatever, right? This may sound unromantic and bleak. I think it's just realistic and the future we have to take head on, rather than trying to make another seemingly reassuring argument why the human, in our case a designer, is so relevant and irreplaceable in the value chain of creation. I think when it comes to organized creativity, we're absolutely replaceable. And measured by the parameters in which the world of work incentivizes, time, money, resources, humans are absolutely on the list of getting replaced. After all, we're not cheap. And I think we have this weird built-in mechanism wherever we can we will take a machine to replace us. And why is that? Because we think it's still the highest flattery if we are producing a machine that can do something equally or better than us, because for some reason we still think we're the pinnacle of creation. So we're having a weird little God complex there that I think is not really working out for us. Remember Uber? The self-driving car efforts in the very early? Uber's business model in the early days was built on the premise that the human driver can be replaced soon. Now it came differently and took a little bit longer, but seems like this is getting on its way. Everyone who has taken a Waymo in San Francisco, I think this is quite mind-blowing. This is quite amazing. And the machine does everything right that I think the human driver usually does wrong. Speeding, smelly cars, taking legal shortcuts. Sorry guys, the machine here is just, in this case, superior. Anyway, not about cars. Let's be real though. Humans have always gradually been replaced by evolving technology. I think there's nothing new. What is new though here, and that's the thing that's we have to watch out for, is the pace. The pace this is unfolding and at that broad of a horizon that this will take on. You know, people say, oh, AI is like, it's like the iPhone. I'm not, no. AI is more like fire. It's like a utility. It will take on everything it can and will transform it instead of replace it, right? It's a utility rather than a device moment. We are now seeing technology that will pick up the pace in its development, and it's turning more and more sophisticated by quite a bit. And it will keep accelerating exponentially. And let's remind ourselves what exponentially means: 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. And while this technology keeps accelerating on that level, it will gradually not just devalue and later replace one or two industries. I think that has always happened with technology waves, or a few job categories get replaced and reinvented, whatnot. No, this will take on the entire field of work, especially white-collar work. This is a major enhancement and later replacement, where possible, of humans at work. And that starts with consolidating tasks, so I get more work done in a week. That ripples over time up to, oh, we don't need to hire a person by the end of the quarter, because guess what? We got the work done. This is how it starts. It's not like one big bang and we're all out of a job. This is a gradual process. And sure, here and there, we're seeing a bit of stagnation in the adoption of AI, and it's plateauing and here and there. But overall, we have to zoom out from these moments and look at the grand scheme. Yeah, look at this of a span of 15 to 20 years. What's happening? You're right now talking to the, well, baby version of ChatGPT. Given the grand scale that I just illustrated, the current systems are more like infants. Infants with a PhD degree of knowledge and eventually writing skills. Again, I'm looking at this very much from a what is realistic perspective and not from a doom and gloom perspective. What we need to do, I think we have to start recognizing what this is about, what's coming, and we have to start getting to work, seriously. We need to upscale our education systems even more dramatically, not just design education, right? We started this in design because that's what we do, but this is an overall thing, and really need to figure out what humans will do best in this hyper-automated future. And with that, send me your thoughts, comments, feedback on this topic. There's a lot in this topic. We could talk for a long time on this, and I'm, as usual, curious to hear your thoughts on this. So thank you for listening, and I hope you are with me in the next episode.